Once all of the OSDEC plates are located correctly, the fun part begins. Installing the OS post is fast and easy. If you're renting a jackhammer, I recommend getting your site laid out before you rent the tool. This way, you should only need a half-day or short-term rental. Carefully locate the OS post in the center of the deck plate and push the point in the ground. Then, drop the hammer spacer in and then the jackhammer. Drive the OS post in the ground a few inches until the post will stand with the jackhammer. Then attach the post level. Firmly move the jackhammer in the direction that produces plumb in both directions. When you establish this, pull the trigger of the jackhammer quickly, then immediately off again. Check the level and repeat the process until the OS post is in the ground about 2/3 of the way. Once it is, check level one more time. If everything is okay, you should be able to drive the OS post in the remainder of the way and remove the post level. When the OS post has reached the OSDEC plate, you will need to continue to operate the jackhammer until the OSDEC is no longer moving down. This will take a minimum of 130 seconds and as much as 120 seconds, depending on the soil density. Running the jackhammer compacts the soil, greatly reducing the likelihood of the foundation ever settling. If you're installing your deck in the middle of the summer, when the ground around your site is very hard, it's a good idea to run a soaker hose or a sprinkler for a few hours the day before to soften the ground. This will produce more spring-like conditions and make the dirt compaction easier. To install OSDECs with a sledgehammer, use a short block of wood and drive the post in the ground. A piece of hardwood works the best if you have that available. Drive the post in the ground and adjust for level from time to time. If you have several OSDECs to install, the jackhammer method is much easier. If you feel nervous about using a jackhammer, don't be. A jackhammer is fun, safe, and an easy-to-use tool and produces the best results for your construction project. An electric jackhammer plugs directly into a regular electrical outlet and is in fact lighter than a bag of concrete. Now that we've finished installing all of the OSDECs, we're going to install the posts. Now this is a very important stage of your deck design. What you're going to want to do is subtract the height of your beams and joists from the threshold of your door. I also recommend having your deck about an inch below the threshold of your door to prevent debris from coming inside your home. Double check your dimensions to make sure that you've got these calculations correct. The easiest and most effective way to get your post height is to first focus on getting one post at the correct height and working off it with a long board and a level. I like to pick a point like a doorway and hold the level at the height that I want the finished deck to be. Position the level so it's directly above one of the OS posts and is completely level. Then measure from the top of the level to the base of the OS post. Remember to measure accurately because all of the other posts will be leveled from this post. When you get this length, you will need to subtract the height of the framing and deck boards. The deck boards are 2x6 material that's actually 1.5 inches thick. The recommended joists and beams are both 2x8s that are actually 7.5 inches high. So the calculation for the framing height is 1.5 inches for the deck boards plus 7.5 inches for the joist and 7.5 inches for the beams. That's 16.5 inches. Here we have located the level 1 inch below the red door to establish the finished deck height for this project and measured to the base of the OS post. We have cut the 4x4 post to the measured length and put it in the top sleeve of the OS post. Be sure that it's bottomed out by hitting it with a hammer. In this case, we're building a traditional beam and joist construction for a standard raised deck. This is the best method for decks over 18 inches high. For low-level decks from 9 inches to 18 inches, you will use the same technique for establishing the post heights, but the beam and joist locations and attachment methods will be different. Please refer to our website for more information on how to adjust the construction methods for a low-level deck. Now that we have one post anchored at the correct height, the others will be much easier to measure. The best way to establish the length of each post is to rest a straight board on the finish post and then locate the other end on top of the Oz post that needs to be measured. When the board is exactly level, take a measurement and cut the post to that length. This is a fast, easy process and assures that your deck will be completely level. Be sure to double check each post for level before you measure for the next. Repeat this process for all the remaining posts. With a post level, move the wood post until it's plumb and attach with screws or nails in the top and bottom locations, 2 per side. This will hold the post securely in place. For extra support, we also recommend inserting adhesive in the large glue ports. This is not necessary but does offer additional support to the connection and is fast and easy to do. I recommend using saddle brackets like these to attach the post to the beam. They're easy to install and very strong. Alternatively, you can also toenail or screw the beams to the posts or use other appropriate hardware. In this case, we're making the beams with two 2x8 by 12 pieces of lumber. Line them up with each other and fasten them together with 3-inch nails or screws. You will need to have nails every 12 inches on the top and bottom in a zigzag pattern. Our deck is 12 inches wide, so we will not need to splice any of the boards together. The next step is to attach the beams to the posts. Simply rest the beam on the post as shown and position it up to the deck edge string line. Once the beams are in place, we will fasten them to the posts with brackets. It's always best to rest your beams on the posts so that the attachment is not relying on hardware for support. The only time side mounting is usually necessary is for low-level decks. If you plan to attach the beams to the side of the post, be sure to use proper brackets and also bolts to support this connection properly. Please refer to our website for more information.
Now we've got all the beams installed. As you can see with this side, it's very unlevel. We've got posts that are 12 inches to posts that are 27 inches. So OzPost works excellent for unlevel terrain. We've been working on this project for about 2.5 hours and we're about halfway done this entire deck project. So as you can see with Oz Deck System, this is a very fast, efficient, and sturdy way to build a deck.
The next step is to assemble the rim joists. We have simply placed the 12-foot board up to the end of the 16-foot board and nailed them together. Now that we have the rim joist fastened together, we will locate it up to the house. We recommend leaving a 3/8 of an inch gap on the house side, the red door in this case, so that there's room for water and debris to fall through. This will also help prevent wood rot because the rim joist will not be in direct contact with the house. Now that we have the rim joist positioned correctly, we will attach it to one side of the frame flush to the edge of the beam. Because the beams were positioned tight to the squared deck string line, we know that it's exactly square. Now that we have one side fastened, we will measure corner to corner to make sure the frame is square. This is important because the rim joist sets the framework for the remainder of the project and it must be square. Once we have adjusted the frame until both lengths corner to corner are the same, we will attach the other rim joist to the beams. Now we need to determine where the joists will be located. We need to measure along the top of the rim joist on both sides at the correct spacing required for the decking materials. Be sure to check with the manufacturer and your local building code for proper joist spacing for your project.